In this video, we're going to talk about probability in terms of sample space and equally likely outcomes. The probability of an event states the likelihood that it will occur. You find the probability by making a ratio of the number of favorable outcomes over the number of total outcomes. When you find probability, you need to know what the sample space is. This is all of the possible outcomes. Also, when you find probability, you need to have each outcome to be equally likely, meaning you have to have an equal chance of things occurring. If you looked at this spinner right here, do we have an equally likely chance of getting a 1, 2, or 3? The answer is no. So you could not say the probability of getting a 1 is 1/3. Some examples of equally likely outcomes would be flipping a coin. You have equally likely chances of landing on heads as you do landing on tails. Another example would be rolling a fair 6-sided dice. You have just the same chance of rolling a 1 as you do all the other numbers. Before we find probability, let's first talk about sample space. The sample space is all of the possible outcomes. These first two questions say to list out the sample space for each of the following problems. Let's look at the first one. It says a fair coin is flipped. What do you think the possible outcomes are? You could flip and get heads, and you could flip and get tails. You have a 50-50 chance of getting each. There are two possibilities for this question. The next one says that a marble is pulled from a bag and a coin is flipped. List the sample space. We want both things to occur. We could pull a green marble from the bag and get tails, and we could pull a green marble from the bag and get heads. We could pull a red marble from the bag and get tails, and we could pull a red marble from the bag and get heads. Next, we could pull an orange marble from the bag and get tails, and an orange marble and get heads. We could draw purple and get tails, and purple and get heads. And finally, we can get blue and get tails, and get blue and get heads. So how many outcomes were there? There were 10 possible outcomes. Now pause the video and try this one on your own. Now let's see how you did. It says that a coin is flipped and a dice is rolled. List the sample space. Well, a coin has heads and tails, and a dice has the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We could get heads with 1, heads with 2, heads with 3, heads with 4, heads with 5, and heads with 6. We could do the same thing with tails. So when we flip a coin and a dice is rolled, we have 12 possible outcomes. Now let's take what we learned about sample space and find the following probabilities. The first one says to find the probability that a 6 will be rolled on a fair 6-sided dice. Well, a 6-sided dice has the numbers 1 through 6. Recall that probability is the ratio of favorable outcomes over total outcomes. Well, the favorable outcomes is 1 because we have 1 6. And then we have 6 total outcomes. So our probability is 1/6. Go ahead and pause the video and try this last one on your own. The last one says to find the probability that a red marble will be drawn from the bag. Well, how many red marbles are there? There's 1. And how many marbles are in the bag? There are 5. So our probability of getting a red marble is 1/5.